Hello and welcome to another layout update video on my 4x6 foot O-gauge model train layout. I sometimes try to call it a post-war layout. It definitely feels like one with the tubular track and the classic accessories, and most of my locomotives are post-war. But it also has realistic scenery with the trees and grass and soon to be ballast. So in those ways, it also feels like a high rail layout. So I don't really know whether to call it one or the other, but there are definitely aspects of both mixed in. So I kind of just like to call it a combined post-war and high rail layout, but let me know what you think. But anyways, I realized it's been over 2 months since the last update. So I figured it was time for another one. And if you've watched the last one, you'll notice that I've done quite a bit of work since then. So let's get started. And we'll start down here in this corner, where we will find the park scene. And this scene was actually on the old layout before I tore it down to form this one. So I actually salvaged that scene from the old layout, the park with the station across from it. And the park is pretty much complete, other than I need to add some benches along that sidewalk. But you'll find a few bushes with flowers on it lining the sidewalk. There's a small playground with a merry-go-round and a seesaw. And these are the first few figures that I've added to the layout. We'll also find a tree and some Marx street lamps to illuminate the sidewalk at night. And we'll also find this sign right here that says "Welcome to Oak Park." And that's what I've named the park. And that name is actually sort of a tribute to Marx trains and accessories. If you are an expert in those, you might catch on. But if we come across the tracks to this train station right here, this is a Marx Gerard whistling train station. There's a whistle inside similar to the ones in Lionel tenders, so that way even though your steam trains may not have a whistle on board, you can still have whistle sounds on your train layout. And here's what that whistle sounds like real quick. So yeah, this accessory would add some life and sound to your layout even if your locomotives didn't have a whistle. However, there was a version of this station that was identical in shape but had different colors. And instead of being named the Gerard Station, it was named the Oak Park Station. And other than appearance, this station differed from the Gerard in that it had a diesel horn inside instead of a whistle. So you could have sound effects for your diesels too. So pretty neat. So I named the park Oak Park to sort of pay tribute to the Marx accessories and just to do a play on names of the stations. But that's the park. So moving on, if we look around the park and the station, you'll notice that I've added a bit more ground cover. And if we come over to the front of the station, we can see that I've done some grass up in front there. And I've done the sidewalks around the station leading to the parking lot here and the parking lot here and up to the platform. I think the station and the park really go well together and they complement each other. They kind of match with the flower bushes. And I think it'll all look a lot better and more complete once I lay the ballast in. But I just really like that scene with the park and the station across from it. If we move this way, past the gated railroad crossing, we will come over to this corner, which I still haven't done anything with. It will be a farm, as you can tell by the Ford 8N tractor. That's the only telltale sign. It will be a farm, I just don't know how I'm gonna lay it out yet. I still have all of my corn from the old layout that I ripped up like 2 weeks after I planted them all. I'm still sore over that, but I'm gonna put the corn in this corner. I just don't know how I'm gonna lay it all out with the other farm scenery yet. And next to that, we also have the gas station area, which I haven't done anything with either. I need to get or make a gas station building. I kind of have a tight space, so I need a custom build one for that small space. But let's move over onto Main Street. And speaking of buildings, I've made progress with the downtown buildings. I've been busy designing in CAD software some 3D printed buildings. This one's not my design, actually. This one is my own design. And I've just been doing wall by wall, forming up these downtown buildings. This obviously isn't the roof. This is actually the back part, like this, for that building. So yeah, there's not supposed to be a door on the roof, don't worry. But yeah, I'm getting progress done on the downtown buildings. There will be another one here, and then another one here. And once all those buildings are in and painted, this Main Street scene will look really complete, and it's gonna look great. It was kind of hard to visualize at first, but now that we have some buildings in place, you can kind of see how it's gonna come out when it's all done. I've also laid out some cars, as you can see. This row right here is some parking spots. The actual 2 lanes for the road are here and here. And this, as I mentioned in the last video, we have a section of street running track going down Main Street. If we move forward, we will come to another building, but obviously I didn't build this one. This is a Lionel accessory. It's a number 128 animated newsstand, kind of a staple for Lionel accessories. And it's actually not the 128 post-war version. I think it's a MPC era version, so it'll have a different number, but the post-war number would be a 128. And if we come down here to the control panel, we can see that I've added a few switches since the last time. Some still don't do anything because I didn't add what they go to, but way over on the left, I have this one labeled for animated newsstand. And let me turn my controller back on, and I'll flip the switch. And there's our animated newsstand. I don't have the proper newspaper that the newsboy, as they call it, is supposed to hold, so I just folded a piece of cardstock to go in place of that. But it's supposed to be a printed newspaper, but I'll have to get one later on. So yeah, that adds a lot of life and animation to the Main Street. But if we go back to what I said in the beginning of the video about the high rail scenery, the newsstand kind of ruins it, because if I get a figure real quick, this is the difference from a O scale figure and the Lionel figures on the newsstand. It's just hilarious. It's almost 2 times as tall. But you know, these are toy trains. Lionel trains weren't built to be scale trains. So you know, it is what it is. That's why I don't really call this layout a true high rail layout because some things aren't scale like that. But anyways, that's the additions to the main street scene. I've also done this driveway out to the milk platform and the building that will go there later on. So that's the main street scene. And if we continue over to the left, we reach the yard. And if you remember the last video, the yard was just the foam board base with paint. And now you can see I've put all the ground cover over it, and you can see how that's transformed it a bunch. I've added the gravel that will go between the tracks and some grass here and there. And there's a sort of a gravel slash sand walkway that goes through the yard. The water tower here was there before, but it just looks so much more proper now with all the scenery around it. And if you'll notice, I added these 2 trees behind the newsstand, and I think that kind of gives a illusion of a sort of a divide between the 2 scenes, because if you're looking right here, you can see those trees kind of divide the yard from the rest of the layout. Same with the Main Street buildings. You can't see the rest of the layout. You're looking between the tree and the building, so it kind of divides the scenes depending on the way you look. And that's kind of a good technique to make a small layout like this appear more large and diverse, sort of dividing the scenes like that. And you don't need a physical backdrop divider. You can just do things like that using trees and buildings to divide the scenes. So just thought I'd point that out because that's a great tip for making your small layout more diverse. But yeah, the yard looks great with all the ground cover. The only thing it's missing is the ballast over the tracks, as well as the rest of the main line. I was waiting to get most of the scenery done before I go ahead and lay ballast, because that's one of those things where if you lay ballast and then you want to change something, it can get really messy. It's a lot easier to make changes before you ballast. But I'm not really that far off from that point because most of the layout is scenic. Really the only 2 major spots are that corner and this corner. Again, I'm not sure how I want to lay out the farm, but I really don't know what I'm going to do with this corner, period. I'm thinking about putting a Mark's Bubbling Water Tower or a Lionel rotating beacon or something here, but I'm still undecided. So time will tell with this corner. We'll just have to wait and see. One day I'll get a spark and I'll figure out what to do with it. For now, I just stuck this tree right here to kind of give it a little bit of life. But that's pretty much everything that I've done since the last video. The mountain is pretty much the same. And other than that, that's all the scenery and accessories that I've added. The only future work that I need to do at this point are the 2 downtown buildings, the farm scene and this scene, whatever it will be. And then again, at that point, I'm ready for ballast. I also need to come around the downtown buildings, as you can see, and fill in the landscape. I'll probably have to do some steps along the back. So that's something I'm gonna have to figure out as well. There are other little things to do, like the lines in the road and the figures on the street, putting some mailboxes and lampposts along the sidewalks, but there's always little stuff to add like that. As far as the major things go, just the 2 corners and then ballast. And we'll pretty much have a mostly completed layout other than the little details. And with that, that is going to conclude this O-Gauge layout update. I hope you enjoyed and maybe found some inspiration and learned some things. If you did, be sure to give it a like. So I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I will close out by running a train around the layout. So once again, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Now, unfortunately, I can't run the upper loop today because my second transformer is at another location. I'm using it on the bench to rebuild a locomotive. So, unfortunately, we're only going to be able to run on the main line today.